Good morning, MegaPodlinks. It's Krazy Joe, and today, as I record this, it is Thursday morning. That means there is a brand new episode of Star Trek Discovery available right now on CBS All Access, which I have not had time to watch and will not be able to watch until later tonight when the kids are in bed. But it's there, and that means, in my mind, Thursdays and Star Trek just go together, for weeks now. We have been getting new Star Trek every Thursday, starting with the entire run of Lower Decks, which completed its first season a couple weeks back. And now we are in the fourth week of Star Trek Discovery's new season. So we have had a lot of new Star Trek on Thursdays. So Trek Thursdays, man, Trek Thursdays. Thursday and Star Trek just go together now. So let's talk some Star Trek. But we're not going to talk about Discovery. I want to talk about Star Trek Prodigy. Star Trek Prodigy, as many of you may know, is a new series that is due to debut in 2021. And it's a children's series. It's a children's animated series that's going to air on Nickelodeon. I'm very excited about this show because I got kids. I got two daughters. My older daughter, who's 13, has shown quite an interest in Star Trek. She's seen a lot of the movies. She's seen random episodes of the original series, Next Generation, DS9. She hasn't really watched the new Star Trek shows because, unfortunately, as much as I enjoy them, Discovery and Picard have been more adult-oriented. There's a lot of profanity and things that we didn't want to expose the kids to. Which bugs me a little. I really like the shows. They obviously are really well done shows, but I wish they were a little more family friendly because I grew up watching Star Trek with my father, and I would like to be able to watch Star Trek with my kids, and I do with the older shows. But it makes me a little sad I can't share the newer Star Trek shows with my kids. I'm really hoping Strange New Worlds, the Pike series that's coming down the pike, I hope it's more family friendly so I can watch that with the kids, because Picard, there's no reason they should be dropping like 5 F-bombs every episode. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit Star Trek. It feels out of place. It feels forced. It feels like, ooh, look at us. We're edgy. Do you see how edgy we are? We're using the F-bomb every chance we get. And I'm not even offended by that word. I mean, I love Tarantino movies. But there's a time and a place for it, and it doesn't fit on Star Trek. It feels out of place on Star Trek. Every time a character says it on Star Trek, you're like, oh, there you go. There's another F-bomb to show us how edgy you are. Oh, you showed us. And it's a shame because the quality of the show and the quality of the writing is strong enough that they don't really need those kind of cheap stunts. But anyway, it is what it is. I'm getting ahead of myself here, though. We're going off the rails because I wanted to talk about Prodigy. Prodigy is a show that's going to air on Nickelodeon that is aimed at a younger audience. The goal is, let's bring the kids in with an animated series, and then they'll check out, as they get older, I guess, the rich history of the Star Trek universe. Now, we don't know too much about Star Trek Prodigy, but we do know that it's going to be about a bunch of teenagers that find an abandoned Starfleet vessel. That's pretty much all we know. And we know a returning cast member. We found out at New York Comic Con this year that Kate Mulgrew will be among the voice cast, reprising her role as Admiral Kathryn Janeway. Captain Janeway was the captain of Star Trek Voyager. And we know, as of the movies with Star Trek Nemesis, that she is now an admiral. And apparently Admiral Janeway will be a regular on Star Trek Prodigy, which brings up a lot of questions. It's a show about a bunch of teenagers who find an abandoned Starfleet vessel. How is Janeway going to fit there? Well, nobody has stated how Janeway is going to fit there. There's been no official answer given as to what Janeway's role is going to be. But I have my theories. I have my ideas. And I think that it's probably going to be a semi-antagonistic role. I'm guessing that if the crew of this starship, these teenagers, I'm guessing that if they are figuratively speaking, the A-team, that Janeway is going to be Colonel Lynch. I think she's going to be the Tom Hanks to their Leonardo DiCaprio in the movie Catch Me If We Can. I think we're going to have a group of young teens who have found an abandoned starship, and Janeway is going to be the authority figure who's kind of chasing them down. That is my guess. And it's only a guess. I don't know. They haven't told us yet. But I also think it's going to probably be a somewhat friendly rivalry. Like, I think that because the main characters are these kids that are on the run, that Janeway probably will be after them, but also kind of a mentor at the same way. Like, I don't think it's going to be like they're the bad guys and Janeway's trying to bring them. Like, I don't know. That's what I would picture it as. I would figure that it's got to be Janeway has no ill will to these kids. She maybe, has her duty as a Starfleet officer that she's got to get this ship back. But I'm also thinking she's probably going to fill a mentorish kind of role to them. That's my guess. This is all speculation. I am not telling you rumors. I am not telling you things that I have heard. This is just me spitballing ideas based on the facts at hand and trying to put these things together. I could be totally wrong as to how this is going to work out. Well, excuse me. I have been very vocal over the years that of all the Star Trek shows, and we've had, what is it now? 5, 6, 7. Well, we've had seven live action Star Trek TV shows. Strange New Worlds will be number 8. But with 7 live action Star Trek shows, I've been very vocal over the years that my least favorite, my absolute positively least favorite, is Star Trek Voyager. I've softened on Voyager over the years. I've come to appreciate it more than I used to. But Voyager is by far not my favorite Star Trek series. It is my least favorite Star Trek series. It's the only Star Trek series that I have not seen every single episode. Because when it was airing on regular television on UPN in the 90s, early 2000s, I bailed. It's the only Star Trek series I've ever done that on. It's the only Star Trek series I've ever walked away from before its run was over. And I watched every single episode for 4 seasons. 4 seasons, I caught every episode. Then midway through season 5, I tapped out and said, I'm done. Why is that? Well, there's a number of reasons. Number one, it comes down to writing. I think Voyager had the worst writing of any Star Trek series. I don't think they ever lived up to their premise. I think they had a great premise, an idea of a starship trapped on the other side of the galaxy that just wants to get home, and they're isolated and they can't reach Starfleet. It's an exciting premise for a show, and I don't feel the show ever took full advantage of the premise. It really became a Next Generation clone, which was a great disservice to the series when you've got this exciting idea of this crew that's trapped lost in space. The idea that every episode the ship looked pristine and nice when we know they couldn't get back to a starbase for repairs. I always felt that the ship should have gradually, over time, gotten more and more beat up, and we should have seen lasting damages to the ship until like maybe the final season. This ship was being held together with bubble gum and duct tape, maybe even grafting in parts of alien ships, like just do-it-yourself repairs. Like, this ship should have looked like the Millennium. You remember Millennium Falcon when Luke Skywalker first saw it? What a piece of junk. In my mind, Season 7 Voyager should have looked like that. Like, you should have looked at Voyager and said, what a piece of junk. Because this thing should have been so pieced back together after all the battles they had with the Borg and the Kazon and the Herosian, but with no star place to go back to for repairs. I think characters should have died. I think they should have been the Suicide Squad of Star Trek because they were in dangerous situations with no backup. I think we should have seen characters die. And Star Trek, it's changing now. With Discovery, it's changing. But with the old Star Trek shows, a character didn't die unless the actor was up for contract negotiations. You know, Terry Farrell, he couldn't sign a contract for season 7 of Deep Space Nine, so Jadzia Dax died. Tasha Yar didn't feel, Denise Crosby didn't feel she was getting enough to do, so she has to be released from her contract. Tasha Yar dies. These are the only times people died. They never died because the story dictated it. And I think Voyager was the kind of story that should have dictated the characters would die because they were in a dangerous situation with no backup. And we had better shows on at the time, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where Joss Whedon was not shy about killing off cast members. If your name was in the opening credits, it did not mean you were safe. And it was more exciting storytelling. Much more exciting storytelling. But the character of Janeway was one of my biggest problems with Star Trek Voyager, because I always felt she was a very poorly written captain. And that was kind of unacceptable because she was Star Trek's first regular weekly female captain. And as such, she was a role model. She should have been a much better written character, but they wrote her very, very poorly. There was one episode that I think is the most egregious example, and that is the 5th season premiere night, in which Janeway basically locked herself in her room for months because she was depressed and sad. And the crew was like, we haven't seen the captain. And she's locked in her room and basically complaining to Chakotay about what a horrible captain she is. She wouldn't leave her room. I thought that was a really big disservice to do to the first female captain. This character was a huge role model to girls, and they always wrote her as a weak character. That was in my opinion. But I felt like she should have been better. They needed her to be better because of her historical significance within the franchise. So, a lot of you, knowing how I don't like Voyager and don't care for the Janeway character, might be like, what's Krazy Joe think about Janeway being a regular on Star Trek Prodigy? Then again, maybe you're not thinking that. Maybe you don't care. Maybe it's never even crossed your mind. But I'm going to tell you anyway. Obviously, when one of your least favorite characters is announced that they're going to be returning, you don't get terribly excited. But I've decided that the only way to take this is as a new thing. This is a new thing because, yes, this is the same Janeway. This is, continuity-wise, the same Janeway we watched on Voyager. But it's different writers. It's different writers writing her. So it seems like it would be unfair for me to burden the character on a new show under new writers with the poor writing she received in the past. I don't know what the current writers are going to do with her, but I have to give her the benefit of the doubt and assume that maybe they're going to treat this character with more respect than I feel the original writers ever did. And maybe this will actually, for me, be the character's redemption. Maybe I will watch this character on Star Trek Prodigy and think she's a much better character than I ever did on Voyager. And that is my hopes. I'd be worried if it was the same writers coming back. If it was the same writers writing the scripts, I'd be like, well, these are the same writers that made Janeway a character I didn't care about on the original run of Voyager. So why do I trust them to do anything different with her now? But since this character is now in the hands of new writers, I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. And I'm going to actually say that they have a real shot at redeeming this character in my eyes. But you know what? I'd like to know what you think. What are your thoughts on Star Trek Prodigy? What are your thoughts on the Janeway character coming back on Prodigy? Do you think I'm right that this will be an antagonistic Colonel Lynch A-Team type relationship where they're on the run and she's chasing them? Or do you think I'm way off on that? Let me know what you think. I'm really curious. Are you excited to see Janeway again? Did you like Janeway the first time around? I want to know. And, hey, as always, thanks for watching. If you like what you see, please please subscribe. We'd love to have you as a subscriber so we can, maybe we do Trek Thursday every week. Maybe every Thursday we'll talk Star Trek. Who knows? But I'm very curious to hear what you guys think. Comments down below. And as always, keep wearing those pajamas.
Keep wearing those pajamas
with the plastic feet.
Keep wearing those pajamas.
Tell everyone you meet.
Keep wearing those pajamas
with the back door flap.
Keep wearing those pajamas.
Don't open, it's a trap.
Oh no!
It's a trap. Some people call them PJs, some people call them jammies. They can come embroidered with big money and no whammies. They can have 100 tiny commander adamas, but no matter how they look, just keep on wearing those pajamas.
Keep on wearing those pajamas. Keep wearing those pajamas.
And now we're having fun.
Keep wearing those pajamas.
And now the song is done.